No Bare Feet once was one of the most popular pop-punk bands in Hawaii in the early 2000s. The official lineup included Adrian Estrella on vocals, as well as Matt Baker on guitar and his brother Josh Baker on bass, Trevor Jackson on guitar, who was actually later replaced by Nelson Fisher, and the drummer known as Thrasher. The band formed in 2003, and they very soon became one of the most popular bands amongst the islands. This was truly a recipe for success, opening up for bands like Sum 41 and recording with producers like Cameron Webb, who produced bands like Social Distortion, Sum 41, and Motorhead. But who were No Bare Feet? Well, not much is known about them, mainly because they eventually broke up the band sometime shortly after they released their debut album, and much of what we know has fallen on loose breadcrumbs and whatever scraps on the internet that we can get. Now, let me just start off by saying, from my perspective, this is definitely not just any band. This actually happens to be a band that was co-formed by my uncle. And to the common outsider, this might seem like another band that just eventually broke up and fell into obscurity. And depending on the way you look at it, that certainly is the case. However, this video is made to dive into the rabbit hole that is No Bare Feet, one of the new and amazing additions to the lost media craze of the early 2020s. Eighth Grade Teacher was the debut LP that No Bare Feet released in 2005 and is easily in my top 3 favorite albums of all time. And I'm not just saying that because my uncle sings on it. This is genuinely an amazing piece of work. Now, from what I understand, this album was only really distributed mostly in Hawaii, where the band was home to. And although there are several channels all over YouTube and as well as even SoundCloud that have re-uploaded many of the songs, there is one channel on YouTube called Pop Punk Historian. This user managed to find an actual physical CD copy of the album and then uploaded it to their YouTube channel for all to see. Now, this is a super common thing on YouTube and many other platforms, people just re-uploading albums, but in this particular case, this actually comes with one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard. Because before this, all we really had of the album was just a few songs. Much of it was missing. But when I stumbled upon the album re-upload for the first time 2 years ago, I left a comment asking how he found it, and in response, Pop Punk Historian responded by saying, "I found this CD completely by chance from a record store in Hawaii, and they said they just had this one copy sitting around for 15 years. I was stoked to find it and happy to share it with everybody." I mean, somebody tell me that doesn't sound like the setup to the greatest movie ever made. I mean, I just can't get over how low the odds were that this specific individual, who just so happens to run a pop punk archive YouTube channel, would stumble upon this one and only copy. And it is mind-blowing that in a span of 15 years, there wasn't one single other person that ever decided to pick up that copy. And that might sound pretty sad depending on the way you look at it, but if you look at it at a more positive standpoint, you realize that if there really was anybody else that decided to pick up that album, there's a very high chance we would have never gotten this re-upload. Now, once again, this is a professional studio release that was produced by Cameron Webb, one of the most popular and well-respected producers in the music industry. And to show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and close off this section by showing you my favorite song off the album, which is Perfect Girl. Let you pack your bags and get the hell out of mine. Go back home and roll with your girl to last. No strings attached, and when I call her, then she'll come running back. She'll come running. Now, I'm going to start this off by saying we're lucky to have any bit of live footage at all. But the amount of footage that we do have is very narrow. And as you can imagine, they're not the highest quality, and one of them doesn't even have audio. And that's the first video that we're going to look at. It was performed in December at the Pipeline Cafe in Hawthorne Heights. And although I will be forever sad that this video does not have any audio to go along with it, this video, along with the others following it, really do show exactly how popular No Bare Feet was in Hawaii. And we're going to talk a bit more about that through this section. But for now, we're actually going to go ahead and move on to the next video. This next one is actually unknown as far as the location as to where it was performed at, but I think this is one of my favorite pieces of footage of the 3. And although the quality, of course, is not the greatest, for lost media and for No Bare Feet, it's pretty damn good. Now, I'm not going to show the whole video for time's sake. However, if you do want to check it out, I have a link to it in the description. But without any further ado, check out this video of No Bare Feet performing their song 3rd of December. Now before we move on to the last video, there is something I need to say about this one. Every time I see this video, I just can't get over how much fun it sounds like everybody in the crowd is having. And considering the size of the stage that they were on in such an early point in their career, that alone just shows the level that No Bare Feet was at. And this video is really awesome, and I love going back to watch it every so often. But this last video is probably the best footage of No Bare Feet performing live that we'll have in a long time or ever. Now, if I remember correctly, this was one of the shows where they actually opened up for Sum 41. Now, what's interesting about this video is that just like the first video, this was performed at the Pipeline Cafe. So this was either on the same tour or potentially even the same exact show. Now, another thing that's really interesting about this footage is that the person that uploaded it claimed in a comment section on a different video that apparently they had this footage on DVD. So either they converted it to DVD from like VHS or whatever digital camcorder they used to film it, or this may have possibly come out of a No Bare Feet package like bundle of some sort, like a DVD pack. And that second theory is most likely to be the case, mainly because in the footage there's several camera angles and it's done in such a way that it almost looks like it was situated on a DVD compilation of No Bare Feet touring. So my best guess is, assuming that this was a part of some kind of home video, this was most likely sold alongside their album. Now with all that said, in the video they're performing one of their songs called Your Freedom. And what's interesting about this song is it's very much indifferent from most of the album. Like I said, this is a pop punk band, probably the most quintessential pop punk band next to Blink-182. And that's not even an exaggeration. If you can actually go and listen back to the full album on YouTube, which once again is linked in the description, you can really see what I'm talking about. It's an album full of color, the perfect mix of fun and edginess, but much like most bands, there's always that one song that seems out of place but is still meant to be there. And in this case, it's the song that they're performing in this video. Now, from my perspective, this is one of those performances where I believe all of the stars aligned to make it happen. Because not only was this the opportunity that they had to open up for Sum 41 of all bands, but on top of that, my uncle happened to do one of the craziest stage dives I've ever seen in a live performance. But anyway, I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna let you guys feast your eyes on this amazing footage.
Let's do a test track and see if this even works.
So this next section is actually the main reason I had the idea to make this video at all. Mainly because to me this was such a groundbreaking discovery that I couldn't help myself but to just dig deeper. I found the No Bare Feet website through their old MySpace account that sadly has been mostly wiped due to the incident that MySpace had a long time ago, where a lot of accounts got unfortunately drained of most of their content. But we actually did end up recovering the MySpace at some point as well, and we'll get to that later. But what you're seeing here is NoBareFeetSucks.com. This was the band's main website from 2003 to 2008. And although sadly most of this website is pretty much broken, given digital decay and how old it is, there is still a lot to enjoy here. So this is the main front page of the website, and by far is definitely the most well preserved out of all the other pages. And looking at this is so surreal because it really is a time capsule. The last update at this time was July 7th, 2004. The guys have a few more tracks to lay this week. Then they will have a week or two off from the studio. Adrian will start recording Vox after NBF gets back from their break. Everything is coming along great and the album should be done soon. Aloha. But it's when you look over to the right and underneath the band lineup on that front page that you can actually see something incredibly interesting. No Bare Feet is currently in the studio in Orange County, California, recording their debut album with Bendable Records. The boys have teamed up with producer Cameron Webb, who has produced for Sum 41, Social Distortion, and Motorhead to name a few. They will be in the studio through June, and their debut album titled Freedom will be out this summer. Now that's an incredible fact you didn't know. Clearly at some point, the name of the album was going to be Freedom until they eventually switched it over to 8th Grade Teacher. Now on this page, you can see the contact email for No Bare Feet, and on top of that, you can actually see the bands that they were inspired by. Now one thing that's really interesting about this page is the very top of inspirational bands, you can see a band called Mest. And seeing this is not a surprise because this is one of those bands that I know that my Uncle Adrian is incredibly inspired by, and he actually plays guitar for them sometimes.
Everybody give it up for Adrian Taylor, EJ.
Now if we go back to the main front page, this is actually a snapshot from 2005, where on April 10th, they sent out the update. Aloha everyone, we wanted to thank everyone who came out to the Wave and Pipeline Cafe this week. The shows rocked and we had a great time hanging out with all of you after the show. No Bare Feet is planning on coming back to Hawaii later this year, so be on the lookout. For those of you who live in SoCal, we have a show with Zebrahead in the House of Blues in Anaheim next month. And what's really cool is that if you actually go to the tour dates page, you can see on May 20th, 2005, Zebrahead and No Bare Feet in Anaheim. So for many of you guys that don't know, Zebrahead is one of those punk bands from the late 90s that got really popular really quickly. And by this time, Zebrahead was experiencing mainstream success for the first time, and I think No Bare Feet wasn't too far behind. But another reason why this is super interesting is because Zebrahead has actually had a number of singers throughout the years. Their original singer was Justin Moriello, who, in my opinion, was one of my favorites. Then there was Maddie Lewis, who was actually their singer for over 15 years, who actually eventually quit the band in 2022 and was replaced by my uncle. And so looking on this website, there are a lot of things that have come full circle as a result of No Bare Feet. A good example is during an interview with Zebrahead, one of the main members had mentioned that when they lost their original singer Justin Moriello and they were looking for a new singer, somebody had name dropped my uncle, and apparently this was a number of years ago when he was in a different band. They don't explicitly say which band that was, but my only assumption is it's either Assuming We Survive, which is the band that came after No Bare Feet, or No Bare Feet.
Rad. And then Dan goes, oh, I know Adrian. Like, he used to come into a bar that I worked at, and he is amazing. Like, I've seen him play. He's got a fantastic voice. He would be a perfect fit. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm like, Dan, if you were friends with him, why don't you reach out and see if he's even interested? And then Dan reached out to Adrian, and fortunately, he was interested, and we didn't even.
And for the most part, that's pretty much it for the entire website, at least what we have so far. There's a lot of images and videos on this website that sadly don't really exist much anymore. I tried to maybe reverse image search and copy the image address, but it just comes up with errors, and sadly, I don't know if there's really a way that we can recover these photos. But if you're sad because of that, don't be sad, because there actually is still a lot more. Remember when I mentioned earlier about their old MySpace account that got wiped a long time ago? Well, surprisingly, I put that into the Wayback Machine as well, and we came back with this. Now, as cool as this is to look at, I want everybody to pay attention to the comment section down below. These are comments left by actual No Bare Feet fans from the early 2000s. And there's a lot of comments talking about how sad they are that the band is broken up and that they won't be able to see them live anymore. However, something really interesting that I discovered through this was that there are actually a lot of comments that are talking about the band getting back together. And they're not even just speculating, these are people that apparently have heard about No Bare Feet getting back together. And so far, as of recording this, I haven't actually discovered any evidence of that. But it just makes you wonder what went on behind the scenes. And there's a few comments saying that you guys have gotten back together somewhat, quote unquote, and I always wondered what that meant. But then I remembered there are these two compilation albums that came out in 2007 and 2008 called Hawaiian Punk, Punk Rock from the Islands of Hawaii, and volumes 1 and 2 both included some songs from No Bare Feet. Even further, if you go to the website discogs.com and you put that into the Wayback Machine, No Bare Feet actually does have a page on there. And under the music section in the profile page, you can see that there were two songs that they had posted at the time called Die For You and Remember the Times. And we can at least see that one of them was posted on January 29th, 2006. So my assumption is they really did get back together for a short period of time and recorded some songs. Now, I'm not currently finding an actual release date for Hawaiian Punk Volume 2, but my assumption is No Bare Feet broke up for the second and final time shortly after that mix came out. Now, what's really awesome about No Bare Feet being featured on these two compilation albums is this actually got them onto Spotify. Now, one of those songs that was featured is something called Our Song, and from what I can tell, this is definitely one of their studio demos, mainly because it's not as professionally mixed or recorded for that matter. But it's still a really great track, and I think you guys should check it out here.
up the kid, count the days till our first gig. Never thought I'd see the day that I'd be up on that stage. As the fan looks down on me, I could only cope and dream that one day it would be me. And it's my turn to sing our song, feel those words, it's been so long. And it's our turn.
And well, that's pretty much most of it. That's everything that I've discovered up to this very point, but that's still not technically everything. There's a few little tiny things that I wanted to show off that I honestly think would probably be better without my commentary. And I think these things are just best to be enjoyed with your eyes. But while you guys check that out, I'm actually going to be playing a bonus track off of 8th Grade Teacher called Irishman. This apparently was a funny little weird song that my uncle recorded that apparently is about my dad, who previously formed his own band at around the same time as No Bare Feet called Short Bus Racers, and we can get into that into a different time. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and you guys enjoy the rest of these pictures.
I'm a little Irishman, I don't drink Guinness from a can. Man. Some folks say that I am fat, I smoke a bong, I got a cat. Man. I go to the bar, I get in a fight, I really want to fuck your wife. Man. Here's the chorus now. La 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 la. I'm an Irishman. La 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 la. I'm an Irishman. And that was our Irishman.